Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is a continuation of our coverage of the last day of the Philippine Military Academy's March week. From the PMA complex at Fort del Pilar, we moved over to the Baguio City Convention Center, which is situated in what used to be a seedy section of town, but which today is a sprawling complex of fine and imposing buildings, chief of which are the UP and the nearby Appliance Hotel, the Supreme Court to the east. On the rim of this, what is locally known as the Government Center. In a few moments, President Marcos, as dictated by tradition, will be here inside the convention hall to address the graduating class of the PMA graduating. And as expected also, the President will give out the individual awards to outstanding graduates of the class. We have two platoons of cadets outside of the building, and as you can hear, the President is honors. As I stated earlier, the President is here today to keep tradition, a tradition which he has been privileged to keep unbroken for at least 15 years since he became President in 1965, the first address of the President before the PMA. We could see the honor guard in front of this building, but that I couldn't see myself while the President was trying to get inside the lobby. Although I could see from where we stand, defense military leader and some of the brass of the military. I'd like also to mention that a large delegation of locals have come here to not only to attend the city officials, but also to officials as far away as Ifugao and Bontoc. They're all here to meet with the President. Inside this convention hall, data is started filling up as early as 9 this morning. A situation report from you inside. The President has just finished trooping the line, and in a short while he'll be coming inside this huge convention center to address the graduates of the Philippine Military Academy Class 81. The President gives a snappy salute. He acknowledges the honors given him. No! Brief honors given the President. He enters the central door of the Baltimore City Convention Center, accompanied by PMA Superintendent Nafi, Defense Minister and Julie, AFP Chief of Staff Romeo Spino, and the other commanders of the different services of the AFP. The President looks around with the officers of the various services. There's General Ramos of the Constabulary, General Sarmiento, Commodore Alejandro, you name it. We will sort of leave the procession inside, going in with the President, right behind it. Top brass of the armed forces of the Philippines. President Montes confers with General Spino, Mr. Lewis. Solemn occasion. That's the Philippine Military Academy Band. Dada, perhaps we could bring you in and see the they're going in. Members of the graduating class, entering the hall. The first group of officers compose the academic cadre of the PMA. Second, the top brass of the different services of the armed forces. And their President Marcos going in. And Father All. Gotta take over.
pleasant afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. Right here at the Convention Hall in Baguio City, the commencement exercises of the 1981 graduating class of the Philippine Military Academy is about to begin.
Lord of the world, the beneficent, the merciful, honor of the day of judgment, Thee alone we worship. Thee alone we ask for help. Show us the straight path, the path of those whom thou hast favored, not the path of those who earn thine anger, but of those who go astray. Lord, on the occasion of the graduation day of the Philippine Military Academy, the cadets of class 1981, we all together raise our minds and hearts in gratitude to you for having given answers to our prayers as you have promised those who diligently seek your help and intercession. Bless these our brothers here present, who proudly now stand at the threshold of a new life, and endeavor as young officers of their armed forces, and entrusted with an awesome duty to be of faithful service to you and their country. Help them to leave each day of the passing year in useful efforts meant not for the things of their own and their fellowmen and their countrymen, but contributory and leading to the fulfillment of your divine will above all things. Man's days indeed are brief at the longest. There is so much to be done that we can do, and we cannot afford to waste a single hour of the duration which you have allotted to us. However permanent they may seem, they are perishable and perishing, transient and fast flying when compared with you, your eternal designs and promises. You are the unchanging one and the only one without end. Your promises will be fulfilled, and all will be well with your chosen ones, for as long as they place their trust and put their hope in you, and as they feel each day for you and others, they do enrich their lives and souls for time and eternity. You have sustained them in the struggles of yesterday. May you give them the same sustaining help they need in all their endeavors as they now face the challenges and uncertainties of tomorrow. Bless our Commander-in-Chief, the President and Prime Minister, President Lee Marcos, and all those who work with him in government. May they always be one and united in the pledge of greater performance and unwavering commitment to public service and humanity in your name. This is our prayer. Amen.
Colonel Ruperto Fernandez, Chief of Chaplains of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, giving the invocation at the start here of the formal ceremonies marking the commencement exercises of the Philippine Military Academy class of 1981.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Ferdinand E. Marcos, President and Prime Minister of the Republic of the Philippines.
Brigadier General Angel Canati, Superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy, introducing President Marcos.
General Canati, the Minister of National Defense, Minister of Alfonso Angulo, the Chief of Staff, General Spino, Dean of the School of the College, the Major Service Commanders and Generals of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, foreign guests, Your Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, the graduates and the new officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered on this occasion to crown success and to honor tradition. Every year, young men of character and ambition from all parts of the country sally forth from these institutions to start a career in the noble profession of arms, to serve people and country. Many bid for the training provided by these academies, but only few complete the test. And those of you who graduate today are among the chosen few, part of the cream of manhood of our land, who on this day and henceforth dedicate their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor to the motherland. This setting is old, it is familiar, but the crowning moment of success is always new. For all of you young graduates, it is the fulfillment of your youthful dreams when you entered this institution 4 years ago, dutifully underwent the rigors of training and study, and all for the chance to serve in the armed forces of our country. This is a moment of joy for all of us, and I share in the happiness of this class of 1981, 161 strong, the highest number that any class ever had of the Philippine Military Academy. I convey to you, as Commander-in-Chief, and in my personal capacity, my heartfelt congratulations, and I'm certain that I speak for the entire people of the Republic of the Philippines. I share in the joy and pride of your parents and loved ones, to whom this occasion is also a crowning moment of success. And as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, I now welcome you, graduating class of 1981, at least all those who are Filipinos, into the armed service of our country. You join our armed forces at a crucial moment of our national history. Nearly 2 months have now passed since we brought to a close the state of martial law in our country and proclaimed our nation's passage to political normalization. Today we find ourselves in the midst of a campaign for the April 7th plebiscite that will determine the future shape of our political system. And subsequent to that plebiscite, if the proposed amendment should be approved, the nation will then elect a president. Full political normalization will take place when a president is elected directly by our people on June 7th and is sworn into office on the 30th of June. There will be new definitions of the powers of the head of state and head of government. There will emerge a new concord between the executive and the legislative powers of government. And the interim Batasan Pambansa will then be interim in name only, for in fact it shall enjoy then all the powers of the regular National Assembly provided for by our Constitution. The lifting of martial law and the acceleration of the process of normalization are developments that have great meaning and relevance to the role of soldiers and our armed forces. These developments do not alter, of course, the sworn role of the military as the guardian of the nation's security. They have merely brought to a close some of the mechanisms and instruments made necessary by the martial necessity, and which must now be replaced by measures and actions of vigilance befitting the national situation today. For the most part, we have been concerned during the past few months with the task of maintaining peace and order in our country, especially in those areas where we continue to face various problems of pockets of disorder and rebellion. It is important that we see clearly how the major services of the armed forces and our law enforcement agencies relate to this vital task of keeping public order and maintaining civil peace, which is also a priority mission even without martial law. Let us start with the Philippine Constabulary. It is a part of the armed forces. It is a major service, but it is also by constitutional mandate a part of the integrated, or is the integrated, national police force. This mandate cannot be changed by ordinary law, and it is in that light that we have defined the role of the constabulary in our national life. That role is basically addressed to police work and law enforcement, which may be likened to what is called in military parlance garrison duty. Along with the local police agencies, the Philippine Constabulary is tasked with keeping public order and preserving the peace of our streets and communities. But this often exceeds mere garrison duty, as you and I know. It is said that it is not supposed to engage in combat operations like our ground forces, the other armed forces. It is only when civil disorder cannot fully be controlled by the constabulary and the local police agencies that the other AFP services, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, come in to help under the concept of a unified command or a task force. The recent events, let's say in Pat Island, in Mindanao, provide an example of how our armed forces have joined in the task of preserving peace and order. Police action has not been sufficient to quell the recent flashes of rebellion, disorder, and trickery in that area, and it has been necessary that the other services be brought in to help in the pacification drive. Underlying our actions in Mindanao is the basic objective that we must not only strive to maintain peace and order there, but also strengthen the autonomous government in regions 9 and 12 in Mindanao. For just as the strength and autonomy of these governments have proven to be vital factors in providing an availing solution to the one festering rebellion in the South, so are they now integral to meeting the occasional flashes of terrorism that have recently visited some local communities in the South. We must therefore continue, and we will continue, to strengthen that civil government, the autonomous government in Mindanao. And with respect to action necessary to peace and order, we shall place the constabulary in their proper service, and whenever necessary, the major services of our armed forces shall continue to perform their task. It may be reported at this point that our actions in Pat Island already bear out the fruitfulness of our response. The pacification drive has swiftly brought back peace to some beleaguered communities, and it has immeasurably strengthened the position of the autonomous government vis-a-vis the situation. We have accomplished this and similar salutary results in our ongoing peacekeeping efforts in Mindanao without impairing the strict conduct for our men in uniform. The men in uniform do not hurt civilians. The men in uniform go after the enemy. Attention to this code has lately been brought to light by reason of the provision in the proposed constitutional amendment, which seeks to grant immunity to men in uniform and as well as those in the civil service who act lawfully in fulfillment of lawful orders of the President and their superiors. This immunity provision mainly seeks immunity for the President, not only for the President, but for those acting in his behalf, from harassment in court, which can occur after they leave office. Now, under existing principles of law, with or without this constitutional amendment, men in uniform are free of liability for obeying legal orders. But liability is different from immunity from suit. Freedom from liability means you can be prosecuted in court, but you can set up the defense that you obey legal orders. This will exempt you from any criminal or civil liability. But without this constitutional amendment, you will have to submit yourself to trial even by civil court. Harassment may result from this. Instances of such harassment are so disquieting as it happened in the aftermath of the American Civil War, when officers of the Union were besieged by civil suits filed by residents of the American South. Recently, the regional commander in Region 7 was charged criminally and civilly, which is General Narcisse, by those who were arrested for violating the law. And we in government had to withdraw the charges against the civilians in order that the civilians may withdraw the charges against General Narcisse. There are any number of suits and actions that have been taken against the Minister of National Defense, for instance, against the Chief of Staff, against the Chief of Constabulary, against the Director General of NISA, against the Deputy Ministers who are in charge of prisoners or detention prisoners, against immediate task force commanders. Now, these were, in my mind, when I insisted at the caucuses of the ruling party, the KBL, the Kilusan Bagong Lipunan, that it is the law exempts the commanding officer and grants him immunity from suit and harassment, then by all means, those who have obeyed his orders must be equally immune. Otherwise, the commander-in-chief should not be immune from suit. This was my position that has been taken from the very beginning, because I believe that the commander-in-chief should take no precedence with those who have followed his orders. No officer, whether commanding officer or not, should order any action which he himself cannot take or will not take. Recently also in the United States we have seen the spectacle of the former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger having had to face a number of suits concerning his actions as a subordinated former President Nixon. But let us be very clear as to the purpose of this immunity provision. We are especially concerned with nuisance and harassment suits against lawful acts taken by officers and men in uniform upon orders, legal orders, from superiors and from the President. Immunity will not cover abuses by either men in uniform or officials in government. Neither does it cover crime punishable under the Articles of War or the revised Penal Code. Immunity is a protection against harassment, not a mantle for wrongdoing. And this important qualification applies both to the President and for those acting in his behalf. The practical application of this provision is that whenever a suit is filed in court against someone, the court will then decide whether to throw it out or entertain it. If found to be nothing more than an effort to harass, and he found to have been filed for action taken in obedience to legal orders, then the case will be thrown out. The basic idea behind this is to spare the civil servant and the military man the unpleasant and time-consuming and very costly task of having to answer all sorts of charges against him, even when they're patently without merit. Here it is pertinent to point out that in the case of our men in uniform, we maintain and observe the highest standards of conduct. And at this point, may I say that the demand for standards or the standards of conduct for the men in uniform are higher and stricter than those that we apply to civilian employees of government. And this is why sometimes I am a little, should I say, setback whenever I hear of hazing in the military academy. The habits of hazing are often carried over into the profession, carried over into the armed forces of the Philippines. We have noticed that not only reserve officers, but graduates of the military academy have been charged with various practices which sprung from the habit of hazing in the military academy. The honor code is another thing. We can compromise on other matters, but not on these matters that I have read. There is such a thing as the articles of war relating to conduct and becoming an officer and a soldier, and for such conduct we exact punishment befitting the mischief, even if we would not do the same with respect to a civil service. And under our system of military service, our soldiery is subordinated to a strict code of conduct enforced by many layers of supervisory personnel that do not exist in the civil government. I speak of this because of the fears raised by some of our critics to the effect that the immunity clause will be utilized in order to cover up for crimes committed by the men in uniform. Whether we want it or not, this immunity provision cannot. These layers of supervision and disciplinary control begin from the immediate superior officer of the man in uniform. It may pass to a higher ranking officer and ultimately end up with the Inspector General. Then the promotions board that go over your 2015, the personnel officer of your own unit, especially of the Major Service Command, periodically reviews your 2015. This is demanded of every man in uniform. Then ultimately the Chief Staff and the General Staff, ultimately to the Minister of National Defense, and finally the office of the President, who is also Commander-in-Chief. Now, this whole series of checks and reviews on the conduct of our soldiery preserves the essential element in our culture as a people. For our culture as a people is peculiar. It demands of our soldiers the highest standard of performance in duty, irrespective of the presence or absence of the articles of war or the customs of the service. Precisely because we recognize power in the man in uniform, we also do not tolerate malfeasance and abuse of office. It is so repugnant to our traditions to see a soldier abuse his power that we consign him not only to punishment, but to dishonor as well. Society punishes him, not only the law and government. In this regard, it may be said that our people may sometimes tolerate abuse, even extreme abuse by civilian employees in government. This we have seen in the past. Although today witnesses are coming out to point out all those who are corrupt in the civil government in order that they may be prosecuted in the Tanud Bayan and in the Sandigan Bayan. But for the men in uniform, the attitude of our people is completely different. We have a culture which demands and expects of them the highest dedication to duty and exemplary conduct in the service. Yes, to our soldiers, and especially to those who hail from this institution of training and learning, it is only right and meet that this be expected of them by our people. You would not have it otherwise, Senor. You, the graduates, the members of your class as well as the other classes, for the ideal and the values you live by are immutable. They are the bedrock of the profession of arms. And anyone who knows the life of the soldier knows also that without that foundation, the entire concept of military service or of an effective armed forces is impossible. You know the histories of many armies who, upon demoralization and the loss of the values upon which their service is founded, have perished and lost not only the battles against the enemy, but lost their country and lost their life. Utmost care is needed that the code of the soldier be observed, preserved, and protected from the bufferings of pernicious influences in an age of growing permissiveness. And now where should these values be more zealously guarded and conserved than in the Philippine Military Academy, which is the mainspring of leadership in the armed forces of our country. It is this code which distinguishes the Philippine Military Academy from any other institution in the country. It is this which confers this institution its very spirit, its very soul, its name, its image. And if this code of honor is compromised during the training of cadets, then the very foundation of the academy is undermined. The academy will have lost its reason for being. What we seek to maintain in the service, we must equally preserve and promote in the training of young men for it. No individual or group interest should be allowed to compromise the code. Those who attempt to do so should realize that they are toying not only with the destiny of this or that man, but with the security of the entire country. For they shall be accomplices to the crime of producing poor quality leadership of an organization that performs a vital role in society in ensuring its very survival. Of the things that need change, we must muster the wisdom to know what these are and how they should be changed, and the courage and the will to change them. Of the timeless and immutable virtues and truth, we must likewise summon the courage and the will to preserve them and to guard them from blemish. This you have been told 100 times. This you have lived by, not only during your 4 years, but in the many years that you will serve your country. The Philippine Military Academy is our one and only military academy and will remain so for a long, long time. We owe it to the Filipino soldier, to their families and loved ones, and above all to our people and to our country, that the Academy performs its role in a manner that brings honor to itself, glory for the country, and assurance of our people's freedom and security. Members of the graduating class of 1981 of the Philippine Military Academy, I extend to you all the warmest congratulations, and I bid you welcome to the armed forces of the Philippines and the armed forces of your respective countries. The nations await you. We wish you good luck and carry on with the mission which many amongst you and before you have carried on their shoulders and in their hearts with nobility. Thank you.
The address of the Commanding General of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, His Excellency President Ferdinand Edelin Marcos, to the graduating class of 1981 of the Philippine Military Academy, right here at the Convention Center of Baguio City. Brigadier General Angel Canati once again to confer the degree of Bachelor of Science on the candidates of graduation.
By virtue of the powers vested in me by the Academic Board, I hereby declare you graduates of the Philippine Military Academy and confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Science. Congratulations.
Upon the announcement of the Superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy, Brigadier General Angel Canati, the 161 young men right here at the Convention Center have been declared graduates with the Bachelor of Science degree in Military Science. Following this point of the ceremony is the awarding of diplomas to the 161 members of the graduating class.
Cadet Steve Wee Chung, Singapore. Cadet Antonio A. Habulan Jr., Quezon City. Cadet Francisco Don C. Montenegro, magna cum laude, Batangas. Cadet Harold S. Pachoco, cum laude, La Union. Cadet Norman C. Legaspi, Quezon City. Cadet Emmanuel T. Bautista, Marikina. Cadet Benito C. Estipona, Sorsogon. Cadet Virgilio O. Domingo, cum laude, Mandaluyong. Cadet Alex Paul Monteagudo, Davao City. Cadet Edgar L. Punay, South Cotabato. Cadet Crispin P. Mercado, Quezon Province. Cadet Robert S. Lee, cum laude, Quezon City. Cadet Leonardo A. Espina, Quezon City. Cadet Oscar P. Lopez, cum laude, Marikina. Cadet Nestor Año Nuevo, Quezon Province. Cadet Philip L. Cacayan, La Union. Cadet Abu Sarin bin Baha, Malaysia. Cadet Marcelo C. Villalba II, Cagayan de Oro City. Cadet Richard C. Tigaan, Iloilo. Cadet Arturo G. Vidal, Bukidnon. Cadet Victorio P. Pagaduan, Tarlac. Cadet Jodel Jose Verdote, Albay. Cadet Roberto D.V. Santos, Bulacan. Cadet Ernesto A. Tesoro Jr., Iloilo. Cadet Ray C. Ardo, Negros Occidental. Cadet Edwin C. Clerigo, San Juan. Cadet Benito T. De Leon, Cagayan. Cadet Epifanio Melvin M. Rivera, Isabela. Cadet Catalino S. Puy, Laguna. Cadet Leo Cresanto M. Ferrer, Pangasinan. Cadet Joseph Rostum Peña, Cavite City. Cadet Crisólogo M. Naive, Camarines Norte. Cadet Bienvenido G. Latag, Lipa City. Cadet Jaime S. Bernardino, Rizal. Cadet Edgar F. Kinsay, Zambales. Cadet Mario O. Soriano, Pangasinan. Cadet Romeo D.V. Poki, Isabela. Cadet Gregory H. Ramos, Parañaque. Cadet Jose Ronnie V. Velasco, Pangasinan. Cadet Marcelo P. Garbo Jr., Pangasinan. Cadet Leopoldo B. Santos Jr., Bulacan. Cadet Gabriel G. Dizon, Fort Bonifacio. Cadet Rafael T. Tadeo Jr., Bulacan. Cadet Charles T. Calima Jr., La Union. Cadet Manuel R. Barcena, Pangasinan. Cadet Randon M. Celirio, Quezon City. Cadet Romulo R. Monasterio, Parañaque. Cadet James D. Dullas,
Zambales. Cadet George S. Catameo, Rizal. Cadet Enrico G. Salapong, Bulacan. Cadet Joel Jesus M. Supan, Tarlac. Cadet Edgardo Rene C. Samonte, Mandaluyong. Cadet Rex Milton A. Dolino, Legazpi City. Cadet Richard Q. Lagrana, Negros Occidental. Cadet Eligio D.V. Ramos, Nueva Ecija. Cadet Franklin Jesus B. Bukayo, Quezon City. Cadet Fernando E. Baltazar, Quezon City. Cadet George A. Rabusa, Camarines Sur. Cadet Rani M. Escalada, Bataan. Cadet Danilo M. Servando, Iloilo City. Cadet Rolando M. Dizon, Makati. Cadet Luis L. Saligumba, Quezon City. Cadet Nicanor E. Dolohan, Zambales. Cadet Abner S. Indino, Tagbilaran City. Cadet Percival D. Abu, Batangas. Cadet Roland C. Amarille, Pasay City. Cadet Leandro M. Exconde, San Pablo City. Cadet Angel Marie A. Tipo, Ilocos Sur. Cadet Cesar Dionisio T. Cedillo, Negros Oriental. Cadet Felipe L. Rojas Jr., Cebu City. Cadet Virgilio S. Velasco, Laguna. Cadet Romeo L. Gapus, La Union. Cadet Reynaldo D. Godinez, Lapu-Lapu City. Cadet Jonas Jose M. Garcia, Zambales. Cadet Felix J. Castro Jr., Muntinlupa. Cadet Joselito Vasconcillo, Bulacan. Cadet Napoleon R. Estilles, Fort Bonifacio. Cadet Manuel C. Morales, Quezon City. Cadet Jaime H. Morente, North Cotabato. Cadet Fernando G. Pagaduan Jr., Ilocos Norte. Cadet Rustico O. Guerrero, Caloocan City. Cadet Reginald D. Villasanta, Surigao del Sur. Cadet Antonio M. Mendoza, Batangas. Cadet Gabriel B. Riego de Dios, Cotabato. Cadet Remigio M. De Vera, Cabanatuan. Cadet Wilson R. Victorio, Pangasinan. Cadet Herbert Juan P. Pilorin, Ilocos Sur. Cadet Pedro B. Aquino Jr., Muntinlupa. Cadet Jonas C. Tumagaysay, Iloilo City. Cadet Michael N. Asperin, Quezon City. Cadet Mario D. Balandra, Iloilo City. Cadet Samuel M. Yordan, Mandaue City. Cadet Dioscoro T. Reyes, Nueva Ecija. Cadet Mark Edison B. Delarma, Iloilo. Cadet Raulito M. Mangubat, Pasay City. Cadet Rainier Fojas Salvaña, Cagayan de Oro City. Cadet Miguel Pio D. Tapisame, Cavite. Cadet Renan Hilario F. Mendoza, Cebu City. Cadet Rolando A. Puruganan, La Union. Cadet Jesus Ferdinand F. Gamad, Pampanga. Cadet Raul Basilio D. Boac, Baguio City. Cadet Edgardo R. Calip, Lipa City. Cadet Michael A. Sanchez, Quezon City. Cadet Alfredo T. Caico, Quezon City. Cadet Arthur P. Ang, Laguna. Cadet Emmanuel B. Junio, Pampanga. Cadet Isabelo H. Gador, Cebu City. Cadet Natalio Icarma III, Quezon City. Cadet Eric Van de la Rama, Quezon City. Cadet Yerson D. Dipaiso, Benguet. Cadet Jose D. Mabanta Jr., Pasig. Cadet Jesus A. Quisano, Quezon City. Cadet Philip George Demot, Benguet. Cadet Rolando R. Ricafrente, Lucena. Cadet Rodel D. Calungsod, Cebu. Cadet Federico E. Lasiste Jr., Quezon City. Cadet Celso P. Poloan, San Pablo City. Cadet Emmanuel G. Addison, Fort Bonifacio. Cadet Marcelino J. Mendoza, Quezon City. Cadet Bernardo T. Mabagu, Isabela. Cadet Noel B. Miano, Pangasinan. Cadet Rodolfo D.V. Tejada, Pangasinan. Cadet Roman Roque M. Jueves, Camarines Norte. Cadet Paterno P. Hernandez, Mountain Province. Cadet Gil J. Hitosis, Sorsogon. Cadet Wensi T. Pascual, Nueva Ecija. Cadet Nestor A. Genuino Jr., Cavite City. Cadet Enrique G. Macaraig, Laguna. Cadet Emerson G. Pareja, Cavite. Cadet I-4I Magbanwa, Bacolod City. Cadet Carlos C. Solomon, Marikina. Cadet Mario A. Avenido, Negros Oriental. Cadet Joselito P. Bernardo, Mandaluyong. Cadet Gregorio Pio Katapang Jr., Quezon City. Cadet Domingo J. Tutaan Jr., Mandaluyong. Cadet Raymond Joseph P. Mendoza, Parañaque. Cadet Edwin Manuel Remotique, La Union. Cadet Emmanuel F. Mendoza, Pasay. Cadet Yusaketo P. Manalo, Marikina. Cadet Teodorico D.R. Raqueño, Makati. Cadet Leonardo S. Tibaen, Mountain Province. Cadet Catalino B. Rodriguez, Baguio City. Cadet Noe P. Linsangan, Quezon City. Cadet Joel T. Alvarez, Sulu. Cadet Arnolfo A. Atendido, Lalo, Cagayan. Cadet Rocky P. Victoria, Legazpi City. Cadet Sunny Y. David, Pampanga. Cadet Luis P. Binoya Jr., Quezon City. Cadet Amadeo J. Junio, Pangasinan. Cadet Joel G. Caringal, Laguna. Cadet Elmer R. Amo, Naga. Cadet Mario O. de la Vega, Nueva Ecija. Cadet Raul L. Di Matatak, Muntinlupa. Cadet Alan L. Purisima, Ilocos Sur. Cadet Cipriano E. Querol Jr., Pangasinan. Cadet Roberto R. Pasion, Nawag City. Cadet Pedrito E. Presto Jr., Pangasinan. Cadet Vergel M. Nasino, Santa Ana. Cadet Alan R. Luga, Cebu City. Cadet Arnold I. Bakay, Cagayan.
Members of the
For graduating as
graduating
number
class,
1 in the graduation merit roll of class 1981, considering overall performance in all prescribed courses of studies and activities for 4 years, the 1981 Presidential Sabre, donated by His Excellency Ferdinand E. Marcos, President of the Philippines, is hereby awarded to Cadet Sawip P. Netnio.
the head of this year's class is Sawit Netnio from Thailand. He received the Presidential Sabre from President Marcos.
for graduating as number 2 in the graduate merit roll of class 1981, considering overall performance in all prescribed courses of studies and activities for 4 years, the 1981 Minister of National Defense favor, donated by the Honorable Juan Ponce Enrile, Minister of National Defense, is hereby awarded to Cadet Rui Chung.
Another foreigner graduating at the top of this year's class of the PMA 1981 graduating class.
For graduating as Cadet First and Regimental Commander of the Cadet Corps, Armed Forces of the Philippines during the academic year 1980-1981, the 1981 Chief of Staff donated by General Romeo Cristino, Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines, is hereby awarded to Cadet Catalino S. Puy.
After having received their diplomas, the 161
For being the member of class
graduates
1981 who has rendered the most valuable service to the Academy in the field of athletics, the 1981 Athletic Saber, donated by the Honorable Ernesto H. Bueno, Mayor of Baguio City, is hereby awarded to Cadet Renan Hilario F. Mendoza.
The special awards are being given out to the outstanding members of the class of 1981, this time the Athletic Award. The special awards have just been given out by the Superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy, General Canapi. Now, Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile. As he makes the announcement of commission.
By authority of the President of the Republic of the Philippines and pursuant to Article 4, Section 31 of Commonwealth Act Number 1, as amended by Republic Act 1038, I hereby appoint you graduates of the Philippine Military Academy Class of 1981, Second Lieutenant, or ensigns in the Regular Force, Armed Forces of the Philippines, with relative rank corresponding to your standing in the graduation merit roll, effective this day, 15th of March, 1981. Congratulations.
Another confirmation of graduation to these members of the graduating class of 1981 PMA, this time from the Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile as they were commissioned into the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Taas ang kanang kamay at sumunod sa akin sa panunumpa sa katungkulan. Ako si bilang pangalan ng ng tirahan na itinalaga sa katungkulan bilang pangalawang tiniente ng hukbong katihan ng Pilipinas. Ay taimtim na nanunumpa na tutupurin kong buong husay at katapatan sa abot ng aking kakayahan ang mga tungkulin ng ating kasalukuyang katungkulan at ng mga iba pang pagkaraan nito'y gagampanan ko sa ilalim ng Republika ng Pilipinas na aking itataguyod at ipagtatanggol ang konstitusyon ng Pilipinas na tunay na manalalig at tatalima ako rito. Nasusundin ko ang mga batas, mga kautosang legal at mga dekretong pinaiiral ng mga sadyang itinakdang may kapangyarihan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. At kusa kong babalikatin ang pananagutang ito na walang anumang pasubali o hangaring umiwas. Katiyan nawa ako ng Diyos. Binabati ko kayo lahat.
The commanding generals of the four major services of the Armed Forces of the Philippines are to take turns in administering the oath of office to the graduates commissioned into their particular major service. Earlier, we had Major General Fortunato Abad of the Philippine Army, the commanding general, that is, and now Major General Fidel Ramos, the Chief of Constabulary, administering the oath of office for the Philippine Constabulary.
Na itinalaga sa katungkulang bilang pangalawang tenyente ng hukbong tagapamayapan ng Pilipinas, ay taimtim na nanunumpa. Natutuparin ko ang buong husay at katapatan sa abot ng ating kakayahan, ang mga tungkulin ng aking kasalukuyang katungkulan at ng mga iba pang pagkaraan ito'y gagampanan ko sa ilalim ng Republika ng Pilipinas at aking itataguyod at ipagtatanggol ang saligang batas ng Pilipinas na ako'y tunay na mananalig at tatalima rito. Nasusundin ko ang mga batas, mga utos na ayon sa batas, at ang mga dekretong pinairal ng mga sadyang itinakdang may kapangyarihan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. At kusa kong babalikatin ang pananagutan ito nang walang anumang pasubali o hangaring umiwas. Pasiyan nawa ako ng Diyos. Congratulations to all of you.
Now, Major General Samuel Sarmiento, Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force, administers the oath of office to those who will be commissioned into the Philippine Air Force.
Kunyari, itaas ang kanang kamay, susunod sa akin sa panunumpa ng katungkulan. Ako si, ang pangalan nyo, ng iyong tirahan, na itinalaga sa katungkulan bilang pangalawang tinyente na humbog ng pagawid ng Pilipinas. Ay taimtim na nanunumpa, natutuparin kong buong husay at katapatan. Sa abot ng aking kakayahan, ang mga tungkulin ng aking kasalukuyang katungkulan at ng mga iba pang pagkaraan nito'y gagampanan ko sa ilalim ng Republika ng Pilipinas na aking itataguyod at ipagtatanggol ang konstitusyon ng Pilipinas na tunay na mananalig at tatalima ako rito. Kasusundin ko ang mga batas, mga kautusan legal, at mga dekretong pinaiiral ng mga sadyang itinakdang may kapangyarihan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. At kusa kong babalikatin ang pananagutang ito nang walang anumang pasubali o hangaring umiwas. Kasihan nawa po ng Diyos. Congratulations.
Now, Rear Admiral Simeon Alejandro, Flag Officer in Command of the Philippine Navy, conducts the oath of office on the graduates who will be commissioned into the
Sa
Philippine Navy.
panunumpa sa katungkulan. Ako si, ang pangalan, ng antirahan na itinalaga sa katungkulan bilang ensign ng hugbong dagat ng Pilipinas ay taimtim na nanunumpa na tutuparin kong buong husay at katapatan sa abot ng aking kakayahan ang mga tungkulin ng aking kasalukuyang katungkulan at ng mga iba pang pagkarang nito ay Gagampanan ko sa ilalim ng Republika ng Pilipinas na aking itataguyod at ipagtatanggol ang Konstitusyon ng Pilipinas na tunay na mananalig at tatalima ako rito. Nasusundin ko ang mga batas, mga kaudusang legal at mga dekretong pinahihirat na mga sadyang tinakdang may kapangyarihan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. At kusa akong babalikatin ang pananagutang ito nang walang anumang pasubali o hangaring umiwas, kasihan nawa ako ng Diyos. Binabati ko kayong lahat.
The commanding generals of the four major services of the Armed Forces of the Philippines have just conducted the oath of office of the graduates to be commissioned into their respective commands. As you know, there are also foreign graduates among the batch of 1981 PMA class, and the representatives of these countries will administer their own offices, oath of offices for their respective armed forces.
Bibili yang Mahavliya, di Paduka Baginda, Yang di Batuan Agong, the King of Malaysia, has graciously consented the granting of a commission to Officer Cadet Abisarin bin Bakar in the rank of Lieutenant in the Malaysian Armed Forces on the successful completion of his Officer Cadet training from the Philippine Military Academy in Baguio City, the Republic of the Philippines, on the 15th day in the month of March in the year 1981, as conveyed by the Grand Chamberlain of the Istana Negara, Kuala Lumpur.
The lone graduate from Malaysia in this year's PMA graduating class received his oath of office.
Ampun Tuanku, Patih sesungguhnya berikrar tetap akan taat setia ke bawah budi yang maha mulia Sri Paduka Baginda. Patih mengaku akan mempertahankan kedaulatan dan kemerdekaan negara. Patih sebagai pegawai tentera juga berikrar akan melaksanakan segala kewajipan dan tanggungjawab yang diamanahkan kepada Patih dan berazam menjaga tata tertib dan tradisi angkatan tersebut. Ampun Tuanku.
The graduate from Malaysia in this year's PMA class expressing his pledge of loyalty to the Armed Forces of Malaysia. Following now is the administration of oath of office to the graduate from Singapore, to be administered by the ambassador of that country.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Steve Wei Chung, of the Singapore Armed Forces, having been appointed to the position of Second Lieutenant, Singapore Armed Forces, hereby solemnly swear that I will well and faithfully discharge to the best of my ability the duties of my present position and of all others I may hereafter hold under the Republic of Singapore, that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Singapore, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and the decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities, of the Republic of Singapore, and that I impose these obligations upon myself voluntarily, without mental reservation or purpose of or evasion. So help me God. Congratulations.
Lieutenant Chun Yu of Singapore has just administered his oath of office and pledged his loyalty to the Republic of Singapore Armed Forces of the Philippines. He also graduates as the second in his class. He received 5 other awards: the Minister of National Defense, Sabres in Humanistic Clerk, the Social Science class, and Bully Plaque, and ACF Award. Now the student from the Republic of Thailand. A very brief oath of office administered to the students from Thailand, who also graduates with honors at the top of this year's class, the 1981 class of the Philippine Military Academy. That was Sawit Netniong.
Will you raise your right hand and repeat after me the code of conduct of the Filipino soldier? I am a Filipino soldier. I will support and defend the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. I am a Filipino soldier. I will fight all forces that will destroy the freedom and independence of the Filipino people. I am a Filipino soldier. I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees of my lawful superiors at all times. I am a Filipino soldier. I will uphold the supremacy of civilian authority over the military in war or in peace. I am a Filipino soldier. I will live and die in the true Filipino tradition of valor and honor, duty and loyalty. To all these, I pledge my life, my treasure, and my sacred honor. Congratulations and welcome to the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
The code of conduct of the Filipino soldier administered to the graduating class by General Romeo Espino, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And by that very action, the General also formally accepted the members of this class into the folds of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Now the alma mater song of the Philippine Military Academy to be joined also by the public. final cheers marking the end of the graduation ceremony for this year's commencement exercises here at the Philippine Military Academy, together with the throwing of the hats by the cadets. One can only imagine the mixed feelings that these graduates have right now as they enter a new stage in their lives after having gone through 4 very rigorous years of training. They now brave the world which they have been preparing for the past 4 years. Of course, graduation to the PMA cadet is a truly memorable event. It is an event of success, notably with a sense of pride, distinction, and honor. For, as you very well know, every PMAer is a firm and resolute guardian of peace and progress in a democracy. He virtually becomes a standard bearer of that symbolic conscience of the armed forces of the Philippines and of the Republic. On his shoulders now rests the responsibility of protecting national integrity. And as products of the Philippine Military Academy, these men stand vigilant as the country's pride in the task of nation building. They have just been proclaimed graduated by no less than the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos, followed by pronouncement of graduation by the Minister of National Defense, Juan Ponce Enrile, and the commanding generals of the 4 major services of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. These graduates will, from here on, dedicate their ideals, dedicate their efforts to nation building in the service of the people in their respective branches of the armed forces, whether it be with the Philippine Navy, the Philippine Army, the Philippine Constabulary, or the Philippine Air Force. With the commencement exercises having just concluded, His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos, together with the other officials of the military, descend from the stage here at the Convention Center in Baguio City and proceed to go out of the Convention Center. This has truly been a very memorable event for all of the graduates of this year, 1981 class of the Philippine Military Academy. Naturally, too, this is very memorable for the people who have been behind these graduates, supporting them all the way in the persons of their parents and their loved ones. Through the years that they have gone through rigorous training, I'm sure these parents have been very much a part of all the efforts that these graduates have exerted into finally realizing their goals, that of finishing the 4 years of training here at the Academy, and also of being able to fully serve the country by continuing to be true vanguards of security and national integrity. They more become now active partners in nation building. For and on behalf of the Maharlika Broadcasting System, Progress Television 4, and on behalf of my colleague Joe Sobrino, this is Dada Lorenzana thanking you for being with us, and have a pleasant afternoon ahead of you.
You have just seen the Philippine Military Academy graduation exercises, brought to you live from Baguio City by NBS Public Affairs.